I thought I had it all: good job, a decent house, a beautiful wife. But looking back, I see now that I was blind to everything that really mattered. My name's Jack, and I've lived in Houston, Texas, all my life. I'm the kind of guy who works hard, comes home, and doesn't ask too many questions. Maybe that's my biggest flaw. It all started when we went to a corporate event one Friday night. It was the usual crowd: my colleagues, their wives, some of the upper management folks. But there was something different about Mary that night. She was glowing, but not in the way she usually did. She had this nervous energy about her, like she was trying to hide something, but I had no reason to suspect anything. Mary and I had been married for 5 years, and I trusted her with my whole heart. At the party, she was chatting with the company's CEO, a guy named Ryan. I didn't think much of it. He was a good-looking guy, in his mid-30s, always in control of his words, but I wasn't worried. Mary was always friendly, the life of the party. But when I caught her laughing a little too hard at one of Ryan's jokes, it felt like a small shift in the air, like something was changing and I didn't know it yet. A few weeks after that night, things started to feel off. I noticed little things. Her perfume, for example. It wasn't the one she usually wore, a soft, floral scent. It was something bolder, heavier, like a mix of musk and something else. I asked her about it once, and she just laughed it off, saying it was a new scent she was trying. I didn't think much of it then. But the small signs kept adding up. I found her bra under the passenger seat of my car. I couldn't remember the last time she'd been in the car alone. My mind immediately raced to the worst possible conclusion, but I pushed it away. It couldn't be true. Mary wouldn't do that to me. She loved me, right? Then, a few days later, I noticed the condoms in her bag. I bought the condoms for us. I always did. So, seeing them in her bag felt odd. Like she was hiding them there, as if to remind herself that she had a choice. I didn't say anything because, well, it didn't make sense. Maybe I was just overthinking it. We had been trying for a baby, after all. Maybe she was just being careful, or maybe it was a mistake. But something was telling me I was missing something. And I hated that feeling. Still, I kept telling myself it was nothing. After all, we were planning a child together. Mary had been talking about how much she wanted to start a family, how much she couldn't wait to have a baby. I had no reason to question her devotion to me, not when she looked at me with that soft smile, those eyes that always made me feel like I was the luckiest guy in the world. Then, one night, something happened that should have been a clue, but I couldn't see it for what it was. We were in bed, about to make love, and it was different. I had no idea why, but it felt rushed, almost mechanical. I could tell she was into it, but there was a disconnect between us. It wasn't like our usual nights, passionate, slow, with no rush to finish. This time, she seemed distant, like she was somewhere else. I chalked it up to the stress of work and the baby talk, but in hindsight, I know it was more. Afterward, she told me she was late. I was thrilled, of course. We were both over the moon. A baby. Finally. It felt like our dream was coming true. I kissed her and we laughed, planning what color we'd paint the nursery, what names we'd pick for the baby. Everything seemed perfect, until it wasn't. I should have known something was wrong when Mary's enthusiasm didn't match mine. She didn't seem as excited as she had been before. But I didn't want to dwell on it. I convinced myself she was just nervous, and that was normal. Maybe I was the one overthinking things. But deep down, I had this gut feeling that something wasn't right. It wasn't just the signs. It was the way things started to feel different between us. I could feel the distance growing. I could see it in her eyes, in the way she spoke to me, in the way she held herself when we were together. Mary had always been the type of woman who looked at me like I was the only one in the room. But now she looked at me like I was just there. I tried to push the thoughts away, telling myself it was just a rough patch. After all, we were planning a family together. That was supposed to bring us closer, wasn't it? But something inside me was whispering that the life I thought I had was about to unravel in ways I couldn't yet imagine. And it was going to be far worse than I ever thought possible. This was just the beginning. The next few months were filled with small, strange moments that made me more suspicious. But nothing could have prepared me for the truth. It's funny how life can change in the blink of an eye. One minute you're celebrating the joy of impending fatherhood, and the next, you're questioning everything you thought you knew about the woman you've spent years with. The weeks after Mary told me she was pregnant were filled with excitement and anticipation. We went to doctor's appointments together, picked out baby clothes, and started planning the nursery. But even as we prepared for this new chapter in our lives, something felt off. It wasn't like before. Mary had always been excited about our future, but now, it felt more like an obligation. The night we conceived the baby was something I'll never forget. We were lying in bed, the soft glow of the bedside lamp casting a warm light on her face. She looked beautiful, but there was something different about her. Something distant. She kissed me like she had so many times before, but there was no spark. I didn't think much of it then. We'd been under stress, what with the baby on the way and all, and sometimes the pressure can change things between two people. But that night, after making love, she was quieter than usual. Her eyes were glazed over, and I could tell she wasn't really there. Still, we just made a baby, right? I tried to push the thoughts aside. We laughed, held each other, and talked about how we couldn't wait to tell our families. It felt real, in the moment, like we were starting something that would last forever. A few weeks passed, and Mary's mood shifted. She started having these random outbursts, small things, like getting annoyed at me for no reason or snapping at me when I asked her a simple question. I tried to chalk it up to the hormones, the stress of being pregnant, but it became a pattern. It wasn't just the little things, though. It was the way she started acting like she didn't need me. She'd go out for hours without telling me where she was going, and when I asked, she'd get defensive. I had never been the jealous type, but the signs were starting to stack up. I couldn't ignore them anymore. But I wanted to. I wanted so badly to just believe that everything was okay. We were going to have a baby. Mary was going to be a mother, and I was going to be a father. We'd build our family together, just like we always talked about. And yet I kept seeing things that didn't make sense. One day, she came home late from a girls' night out. When she walked in, her hair was disheveled, her lipstick smudged. But it wasn't that caught my attention. It was the way she looked at me, almost guilty, like she was caught in something she didn't want me to see. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to be the overbearing husband. But the next morning, when I found a strange lipstick mark on her collar, one I didn't recognize, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I didn't confront her. Not yet. But the silence between us grew, and I could feel myself slipping into a space I couldn't get out of. Something was wrong. I just couldn't put my finger on it. A few days later, we went to an ultrasound appointment. I held her hand, watched the screen, and felt that same excitement I'd felt months ago. There was the baby, our baby, heart beating, tiny limbs moving. The doctor smiled and pointed to the screen, explaining what we were seeing. Mary was glowing. She smiled and squeezed my hand, but there was still something I couldn't shake. That night, as we lay in bed together, she whispered to me, "I'm so glad we're starting this family, Jack. It's all going to be perfect." But the words didn't sound like hers. It was like she was reading from a script, something rehearsed, as if she was trying to convince herself more than me. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But deep down, a voice inside me told me that everything wasn't perfect. Then came the moment that would change everything. It was a Saturday morning, and I had decided to go out for a run, trying to clear my mind. When I came back, I found Mary in the kitchen, making breakfast. She was wearing one of my old shirts, and I could smell the scent of something that wasn't hers, a cologne, heavy and masculine. I froze in the doorway. I didn't need to ask. I just knew. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time in a long while, I saw fear. Fear that I might finally know the truth. She tried to cover it up, tried to brush past it. But I had seen enough. I didn't say anything. I just walked out of the room, went into the garage, and slammed the door behind me. I didn't know what to do with the rage building inside me, the overwhelming feeling of betrayal. I tried to hold it in, but the truth was already eating at me. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. The feeling of her in my arms, her body pressed against mine, had started to feel hollow. I couldn't ignore the signs any longer. I wasn't the father of her child. I knew it. But I didn't want to face it. Not yet. I had to be sure. And the only way to be sure was to confront her. The next few days were filled with a growing tension. I could feel the walls closing in. But I didn't say anything to Mary yet. I wanted to wait. I needed to see if my suspicions were true, and if they were, I would confront her with the evidence. Little did I know that the truth was closer than I thought, and it was about to come crashing into my life in a way I could never have prepared for. It's one thing to have suspicions, but another thing entirely to have those suspicions confirmed. I knew something wasn't right, but nothing could have prepared me for the truth. The truth that shattered everything I thought I knew about my marriage, about Mary, and about the life we were supposed to have together. It all started with a phone call. I was sitting at the kitchen table one afternoon, scrolling through emails from work when my phone buzzed. The caller ID was a name I didn't recognize, Dr. Mitchell. The name didn't mean anything to me at the time, but the moment I answered the call, I knew something was wrong. "Mr. Palmer?" the voice on the other end asked. It was a woman's voice, calm, almost too calm. "Yes?" I replied, my heart starting to race. "I'm Dr. Mitchell, the obstetrician who's been overseeing your wife's pregnancy. There's an issue we need to discuss." An issue? I didn't know what she was talking about, but I felt my stomach twist. "Is everything okay with the baby?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mr. Palmer, we've been running some additional tests. I'd like you to come in as soon as possible. This is important." I didn't know what I was expecting, but it certainly wasn't this. I told the receptionist I would come by that afternoon. My hands were shaking as I dialed Mary's number, but she didn't pick up. It didn't matter. I was going to get answers. When I arrived at the clinic, Dr. Mitchell greeted me in the lobby with a look on her face I'll never forget. It was the kind of look a person gives you when they know something you don't, something they can't yet tell you. She led me into a small consultation room, and I sat down, trying to steady my nerves. "Mr. Palmer," she started, "I'm afraid there's been a complication with the paternity test results." I froze. Paternity test? Why the hell would they be running a paternity test? My mind raced. Was there a mistake? She continued, "The results came back, showing that the child your wife is carrying is not biologically yours." I felt the floor drop out beneath me. My brain couldn't process what she was saying. "What? What do you mean? That's impossible." I understand this is difficult to hear," Dr. Mitchell said gently. "But the genetic markers don't match. The baby's father is not you, Mr. Palmer." I just sat there, unable to speak. I didn't know what to feel: anger, confusion, disbelief. My mind couldn't catch up with my heart. This was my wife. The woman I trusted with everything. And now I was hearing this. "Are you sure?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," she said, looking me in the eye. "The DNA is conclusive. I'm very sorry." I didn't know how long I sat there, just staring at her. My mind was racing, but the one thought that kept repeating itself was, "This can't be happening." I had to see for myself. I had to confront Mary. I didn't care about the details of the test anymore. I just wanted to know how this could have happened. My wife, my Mary, had been unfaithful. But to this extent? With a child on the way? I had so many questions, but all I could think about was the man who was the real father. I went home, trying to keep it together, but every step I took felt like I was walking through a fog. When I got to the house, Mary was sitting on the couch, reading a book. Her belly had grown, and I could see the faintest hint of a smile on her face when she saw me. "Hey," she said, standing up to kiss me, but I stepped back. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice flat, betraying nothing but the storm inside me. She froze, her smile disappearing. "What are you talking about?" "The man you've been sleeping with," I spat. "The one who got you pregnant. Who is he?" Her face turned pale, and I could see the realization hit her. She knew that I knew. But she didn't say anything at first. She just stood there, looking at me like she was calculating how much of the truth to tell. "Jack, please," she whispered. "I can explain." But I didn't want her explanation. I didn't want her lies anymore. "No. I've heard enough," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "I want to know who the hell this guy is. I want to know how long this has been going on." She started to cry, but it was too late for tears. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," she said, her voice breaking. "It was just a mistake. It didn't mean anything." "A mistake?" I repeated, the bitterness in my voice unmistakable. "You think I'm going to buy that? You think I'm stupid enough to believe that?" "I'm sorry, Jack," she sobbed. "I never wanted to hurt you." But the damage was already done. My heart felt like it was being ripped apart, piece by piece. I couldn't look at her anymore. I couldn't look at the woman who had promised to love me, to build a future with me. She wasn't the person I thought she was. Then she said it. The words that would haunt me forever. "The father," she said softly, "is Ryan." Ryan. The same Ryan she had been talking to at that corporate event. The CEO I had brushed off. The man I had never suspected. I felt like I was going to choke. The anger swelled up inside me, suffocating every thought I had. I had known. I had known all along, but I hadn't been ready to face the truth. Mary's face was tear-streaked, but there was something else in her eyes, something I couldn't place. Guilt? Fear? Or was it just relief that the truth was finally out? I didn't say anything. I just turned around and walked out of the house, slamming the door behind me. I didn't know where I was going. All I knew was that my life had been a lie, and I didn't know how to pick up the pieces. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could just walk away, let the truth settle in, and move on with my life. But there was no escaping the feeling that had taken root inside me. My marriage was a lie. Mary, my wife, the woman I had shared everything with, had betrayed me in the most unforgivable way. And the worst part? She was carrying another man's child. After the confrontation, I didn't speak to her for days. I stayed with a friend from work, tried to get some space, but it didn't help. I couldn't stop thinking about what Mary had done, about how she had looked at me with those eyes, the same eyes that had once held so much trust, now filled with guilt. I couldn't shake the image of her face when she told me it was Ryan's child. The man who had always been so smooth, so polished, hell, he could charm the pants off anyone. And he had. He had taken everything from me, without even knowing it. For days I stayed holed up in my friend's apartment, drinking, pacing, trying to make sense of the mess my life had become. I couldn't go back home, not yet. The thought of facing Mary again made my stomach churn. But eventually, I had no choice. I needed to find out the truth. I needed to know what came next. The day I went back to the house, I wasn't sure what I was expecting. Part of me wanted her to be gone, to leave me to pick up the pieces. But part of me, the part one hated, still wanted to fix things. Maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe we could still work it out. When I walked in, the house was eerily quiet. Mary wasn't in the living room, so I went upstairs. I found her sitting on the bed, her hands resting on her growing belly. She looked up when I entered, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of hope in her eyes. "Jack," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. I didn't want to hurt you. You have to believe me." I didn't respond. There was nothing she could say that would fix this. No amount of apologies could make up for what she'd done. I sat down on the edge of the bed, my hands clenched into fists. "What happens now, Mary?" I asked, my voice flat. "What are we supposed to do now?" She hesitated, as if unsure of what to say. I don't know. But I want to try. I want to make things right. I couldn't look at her. I couldn't bear to see her face anymore. How could she even think that this could be fixed? How could she think that I could just forgive her and move on? The betrayal was too deep. What about the baby? I asked. The question burned in my throat. What about his child? She flinched at the mention of Ryan. She stopped herself, then continued. I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it had happened. And nothing could change that. I stood up, the anger bubbling up again. I can't do this, Mary. I can't look at you and pretend everything is fine. I can't raise a child that isn't mine. I won't. She stood up too, reaching for my arm. Please, Jack. We can figure this out. We can raise the baby together. We can make it work. I pulled away from her touch. No. I'm done. Her face crumpled, and I saw her tears, but I didn't care. The woman I had loved had turned out to be someone I didn't recognize. I wasn't going to waste any more of my time trying to fix something that couldn't be fixed. As I walked out of the room, she called after me, but I didn't turn back. I knew that this was it. The end of everything. The end of my marriage. The end of my life as I had known it. The next few weeks were a blur of legal papers, phone calls, and shouting matches. Mary tried to convince me to stay, to work things out, but I was done. There was no going back. I couldn't stay married to a woman who had been unfaithful, who had betrayed my trust in such a profound way. It wasn't just the affair, it was the fact that she was carrying Ryan's child, that she had carried on a secret life without me ever knowing. I felt like a fool, like I had been living in a dream, and the moment I woke up, everything came crashing down. The divorce was ugly. I got the house, but I didn't want it. The memories of Mary were everywhere, and they made my skin crawl. The lawyers argued over who would get custody of the baby, but I couldn't bring myself to care. I didn't want anything from her anymore. Not the house, not the baby. Nothing. Months passed, and Mary gave birth to the child, a baby boy. I hadn't been there for the birth, but I heard the news through the grapevine. A boy. Ryan's boy. I didn't go to see her. I didn't go to the hospital. But I heard about the baby's arrival. I heard how she tried to explain everything to her family, how she cried about what a mistake it all was. But none of it mattered. The truth had been revealed, and I couldn't undo what had been done. The news about the baby, about the paternity, didn't shock anyone, not really. It was clear to everyone that this was Ryan's child. Everyone except me, of course, who had been too blinded by love to see the truth when it was right in front of my face. I moved on eventually. I started over. I threw myself into my work, into building a new life, but the scars from that time remained. Every so often, I'd think about Mary, what could have been, what we could have had if she hadn't betrayed me. But those thoughts didn't last long. I couldn't afford to dwell on the past. And in the end, I realized something important. Some things are just never meant to be. I'd like to say that everything got easier after I walked away from Mary, but that would be a lie. The truth is, even after the divorce, the pain lingered. The betrayal stayed with me, like a shadow I couldn't shake. The world kept moving, but I was stuck, trapped in the past, trying to figure out how to rebuild my life. The first few months after the divorce were the hardest. Every little thing reminded me of Mary. The way she used to laugh, the way she would curl up next to me on the couch, the smell of her perfume still lingering in the sheets. It wasn't easy to let go of someone who had been such an integral part of my life. But I had to. I had to face the truth that she wasn't the woman I thought she was. I stayed away from the house for a while, the house that had once been a home, but now felt more like a tomb. I rented a small apartment downtown. It wasn't much, but it was mine. It was a place where I could heal. The first few weeks were lonely, but I had come to accept that being alone was better than being deceived. In time, the anger faded. I stopped thinking about Mary and Ryan as much. The days became less about trying to understand what happened, and more about what I wanted to do with my life going forward. I took on more work, stayed busy, and began to meet new people. I even went on a few dates, though nothing ever came close to what I had with Mary. I found myself spending more time with friends, especially Luke, a guy I had known for years. We worked together, but we were also close outside of the office. Luke had been there for me throughout the divorce, and he never judged me for my anger or pain. He just listened when I needed to vent. One night, a few months after the divorce, I was sitting at a bar with Luke, having a few beers. He was telling me about his latest project at work when my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number, but I answered it anyway. "Jack Palmer?" The voice on the other end was unfamiliar. "Yeah?" I replied, not recognizing the caller. "This is Dr. Mitchell from the clinic. I've been trying to reach you. We need to talk." I felt a tight knot form in my stomach. Dr. Mitchell. The woman who had told me about the paternity test. My blood ran cold. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's about the baby," she said. "We've had some complications." My mind immediately went to 1,000 different places. Complications? What complications? I stood up from the table, ignoring Luke's curious glance. "What kind of complications?" Well, I can't explain everything over the phone," Dr. Mitchell said, her voice strained. "Can you come in tomorrow morning? It's important." I hung up without saying goodbye. I didn't know what to think. Was something wrong with the baby? Was it sick? I told myself to calm down, but the anxiety was gnawing at me. The next morning, I found myself back at the clinic, sitting in the same sterile consultation room where everything had fallen apart months ago. Dr. Mitchell walked in with a serious expression on her face. "Mr. Palmer," she began, "there's something you need to know about the child Mary gave birth to." I braced myself for more bad news. What could be worse than what I already knew? "You see," she continued, "we ran some more tests, and it seems there's another issue we weren't prepared for. We've discovered that the baby isn't just Ryan's biological child." I blinked, confused. "What are you talking about? I already know the baby isn't mine." "You told me that already." "Yes, but there's more to it," Dr. Mitchell said, her voice growing softer. "The biological father is someone else entirely." I could barely process what she was saying. Someone else? Who? Who else could be the father? And why hadn't anyone told me this before? She looked at me with a mix of concern and sympathy. "Mr. Palmer, the baby's real father is another one of Mary's partners. We've traced the DNA back, and we believe it to be someone else entirely." I could feel the blood drain from my face. "What do you mean, someone else?" I repeated, my voice rising in disbelief. Dr. Mitchell paused before speaking again. "Mary had multiple partners during the time she conceived. And unfortunately, the baby's paternity is more complicated than we thought." I couldn't take it. I was already reeling from the fact that the baby was Ryan's, but now I found out there was another man involved. Another lover? I stood up, my heart racing. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this, not just with one man but with multiple men? Dr. Mitchell's expression softened. "I'm so sorry, Jack. I know this is a lot to process." I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to feel. I had already lost my wife to another man, but now it seemed like I had lost her to multiple men. Everything I thought I knew about her was a lie. I left the clinic in a daze, my mind spinning with the new revelation. I needed space. I needed time to think. But no matter how much I tried to move forward, I couldn't escape the truth. The woman I had loved had never been the woman I thought she was. As I walked down the street, I realized something that cut me deeper than anything else. I wasn't just grieving the loss of Mary. I was grieving the loss of the person I had become with her. I had built my life around her, around the idea of us, of what we would be together. But all of that had been an illusion. I didn't know what to do now. The life I had planned, the future I had imagined, was gone. And all that was left was a void. A void that I didn't know how to fill. But I knew one thing for sure: I couldn't go back to her. I couldn't go back to a life built on lies. So I kept walking, away from the past, away from the woman who had destroyed everything we had, toward an uncertain future. It was time to let go.